This is a new type of prison where prisoners need to be pulled and grinded like donkeys. Each time they push, they will get 1 point. If they fail to complete the number of laps, they will be severely punished. John woke up from a coma and found himself in a high-walled secret room. John didn't know where he was. He only remembered that he was applying for a job before he fell into coma, and he wanted to turn on his phone and ask for help. Only to find that his cell phone was missing. John yelled in horror and kept banging on the only door, trying to ask for help. Suddenly an impatient voice from next door sounded, asking him to shut up. John curiously searched for the sound and found the vent. The sound came from next door. Like John, the neighbor came to apply for a job. However, if he wanted to get the job, he had to accept this experiment during the interview, because there was no he looked carefully and signed. At this time, he regretted it very much. The neighbor next door said that cherishing the good times now will make the coming days more painful. After giving John the instructions, the neighbor went about his work. John was not willing to be so controlled by others, so he began to try to climb the wall, but because he had no leverage, he had to give up. When John was trying to get out, there was a sudden whistle at the door, a small window was opened, and someone brought him a sandwich and a bottle of water. As if grasping a life-saving straw, John stretched out his hand, wanting to beg the other party to let him out, because he had a pregnant wife to take care of, but the other party stung his hand with a sharp object. He quickly retracted his arm and bandaged the wound with a tie. He sat helplessly on the ground and was about to eat when an alarm suddenly sounded in the secret room, followed by a man's scream not far away. John even began to worry about his personal safety. The next morning, John threw the garbage into the pipe as instructed. He noticed a few hairs on the ground and curiously went over to check. Unexpectedly, there was a head underneath. He was so frightened that he quickly asked the neighbor next door, who said that he was the last person who stayed in the secret room. John was a little confused. He was interviewing at a serious company, but now he not only did not enjoy high salary, but also faced the threat of death. The neighbor next door suddenly asked him if he had signed a contract when he first joined the company. There were many overlord contracts on it. People were used to signing without reading the contents, so they were deceived. Suddenly, the screen wall in the secret room lit up, began to assign tasks to him, requiring him to work 14 hours a day. His job was to grind, and he would get 1 point for each push. At this time, John is in the novice protection period. The minimum standard is 50 points. If he does not meet the standard, he will be punished by the company. Every employee was grinding in a secret room, and the one with the lowest score would be fired by the company. But thinking of the screams yesterday, he had already guessed the tragic outcome of being fired. For the sake of his wife and unborn child, John decided to work hard without complaint. Saving his life was the key. Just in case, he turned on the crazy involution mode. He was afraid that he would be sacrificed as the lowest scorer, so he did not stop on the first day and scored 100 points directly during work. After overfulfilling the task, John slept extremely soundly despite the screams coming from around him again. The next morning, John consulted his neighbor to learn from his experience. The neighbor directly emphasized his position, saying that they were not friends, but rivals. Fortunately, his neighbor was also very kind and kindly reminded him not to tell others about the number of his tasks, otherwise others would deliberately do a higher score than this. In order to escape the punishment of dismissal, he pushed even harder today. Even though his wife and children were very tired and full of things to think about, they didn't dare to stop. On this day, he reached a record high of 150 points. Unexpectedly, a cold command came from outside the door, asking him to take off his clothes. After thinking for a long time, he didn't know what mistake he had made. He didn't dare to stop taking off his clothes, so he could only strip himself naked. Naked, he couldn't react when he saw the door slowly opening. It was pitch dark inside. He followed the instructions and walked in. Suddenly the lights were turned on, and a faucet started spraying towards him. Suddenly John realized something, stopped quickly, threw a piece of soap to him and continued to spray water. John picked up the soap and took a cold bath. Only then did he realize that this was his reward for exceeding the completion target. In order to get more rewards, he started working harder, even imagining that he could escape from this ghost place by being ranked first. Supported by this belief, he once again broke through his limits, this time scoring as high as 370 points. Paralyzed from exhaustion, he found a name engraved under the handle Alex, so he curiously asked his neighbor about this person. The neighbor was very impressed with Alex because he was the first person to successfully escape from the secret room. But it's unclear how Alex escaped. Soon he received his performance reward. The prize was now a pen with his name engraved on it. He was almost pissed off. In this environment, the pen was completely useless. He even greeted his family at the system, and with the overwork of the past few days was all vented. He soon paid the price for his inappropriate remarks. The system directly increased his minimum daily workload to 370 points. He was originally awarded 1 point for every lap, but now it has been changed to 1 point for every 2 laps. For John, he had to push 740 laps to complete the task. He knew that this was a challenge that he simply could not complete. He roared out in great anger. He forgot his neighbor's instructions and revealed his own indicators. At this time, other people learned that he had increased his workload several times with his own strength. He couldn't help but blame John for breaking the rules, just because the system's algorithm believed that the limit of human beings was only 50 points. It was John's appearance that made him realize the infinite possibilities of human beings again, thus improving the indicator. This also led others to join the ranks of involution in order to survive. Faced with this impossible task, he worked hard, and his physical limit was only 500 laps, with a maximum of 250 points. It was obvious that no matter how hard he tried, he could not complete the target, and he was soon punished accordingly. The system wanted to assign his pregnant wife to John as a colleague, and John was completely manipulated by the system. For the sake of his wife and unborn child, he begged the system to give him another chance. He simply could not imagine the scene of his wife suffering. The system finally agreed to his request. As long as he could complete tomorrow's target, he would be exempted from punishment. John agreed without hesitation. Suddenly an instrument imitating the sun appeared on the skylight board. Under the threat of heat and exposure, it became more difficult for people to do physical work. But in order to protect his wife, John had no choice but to keep going. After successfully completing 740 laps, the system generously rewarded him with a picture of his wife holding a newborn baby. When John was regretting missing an important moment, he suddenly realized that he had only been in the secret room for a few days, and how could his wife, who was 7 months pregnant, give birth so quickly? With this doubt, John asked his neighbor for help again. Since he had single-handedly improved everyone's work standards, the neighbor had ignored him for a long time. Seeing John's humble apology, he didn't care anymore. He even revealed the method of Alex's escape. John followed the neighbor's instructions and looked at the opposite wall. Sure enough, there was a crack on the top because it was in the corner and under surveillance. Blind spot. It was an excellent escape route. In order to escape from the secret room, he picked up the only pen with a sharp end. In the following time, in order to escape from the secret room, he worked diligently to complete the work. At other times, he worked hard to dig out the wall. With his persistence every day, the wall was finally destroyed. John couldn't wait to get out of the hole, but was stopped by the guards outside. Found out and was knocked unconscious. When he woke up, John was locked in the secret room again. The wall was repaired, and the neighbor next door had his legs broken for leaking the secret. After waiting for the people from the company to leave, the neighbor angrily revealed the truth. It turns out that he was a programmer who helped create systems for the company. In the early days of its establishment, the system's algorithm was not so inhumane. However, as time went by, the system upgraded itself to a new algorithm, causing the experiments in the secret room to become cruel. It turned out that the neighbor was Alex, and even he himself could not escape the system he created, so he persuaded him to accept the reality. However, John realized that since the system followed the algorithm, if they did not follow the algorithm's arrangements, everyone would not work and the scores would be unified. If it is 0, the system cannot rank and punish any person. After hearing this, Alex also felt that John's logic was correct, but people in reality were uncontrollable. He did not believe in evil and climbed directly onto his own millstone and called on everyone. He advocated that if he wanted to fight for his own rights and interests, refused to be a slave to the system. Soon everyone was encouraged and voices of support came from one after another. Then he lay on the floor and watched ads while working, waiting for the system to crash. Unexpectedly, when there were only 5 minutes left before leaving work, the system stated that it had detected a system vulnerability and directly added a rule. After the work was over, he was directly fired with a score of 0. Employees only want to urge everyone to take action. After all, if you don't work, you will die. After a while, the sound of work came from all directions. John wanted to call on everyone to stop and fight the system's algorithm, but no one listened. In the end, only John did nothing. The system was quite humane. After John was before the punish, scenes of his wife and children were played for him. In just a few days, it seemed like several years had passed. The newborn baby has now learned to walk. John was filled with emotion. Suddenly the door was opened, and a group of cold NPCs walked into the secret room. John asked them for help, but found that they were like robots. The supervisor finally appeared. He put on gloves and started rubbing the tools. John realized that he was going to die anyway, so he simply resisted. He rushed forward and knocked down the supervisor, then punched him one after another, beating his face to a bloody pulp. However, the surrounding NPCs did not stop this behavior, but instead showed a weird smile. John stopped the attack and expressed his intention to quit. When he opened his eyes again, he finally returned to the real world. He saw various instruments inserted around him and realized that he had passed the company's recruitment test. The real supervisor who had been beaten by John just now appeared in front of him unscathed. Although John felt like he had spent several days inside, in reality only an hour had passed. The supervisor said that he had witnessed John's excellent leadership during the experiment, ability, decided to hire him as an executive and provided him with an independent office. His work task was to sit down and watch a certain number of short videos. However, this job required confidentiality and could not be told to others, including his wife. Then he signed the contract. The labor contract presented by the supervisor has the same recipe and the same taste. John participated in this new experiment with great confidence. John-Soo sat alone in the office and called his wife, telling him that he would go home later and tell him interesting things about the day.